will set you free. Joining us now, my good friend, a Democrat, Senator second in command, Senate caucus in Virginia, the conciliary, Senator Don McEachin. Senator, good to have you with us, sir.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Very tragic day yesterday, Senator. I'm sure you were following the news, and like everyone else, when this all went down, Senator, you've been involved in this stuff a long time, and you've been on the front lines of a lot of tragedy in your life and your career. What were your thoughts when this first went down?
You don't know what to think. You're absolutely stunned. Your heart has to pour out to the victims and the families and all the folks who are witnessing that horrible tragedy. I can't imagine the pain of losing a child like that. I mean, because those young people were someone's children. It was,
right.
And having three children of my own, it's just I can't imagine. I'm speechless.
Yeah, I haven't really thought of that perspective. You're right. I mean, you get up one day. I mean, she sent a tweet to her, fiance, basically saying, "Hey, honey, have a good night," and that was at 3 a.m. I mean, you just don't expect things like this to happen. But you're right. I mean, they've both got moms and dads, and I'm sure they're stunned, and it's just so tragic.
They're heartbroken.
Yeah,
I mean, that's your son, that's your daughter. You've invested all those years of love and emotions, and it's just gone in an instant. It's just awful.
And then, Senator McEachin, I guess yesterday, we were following this, all of us, on Twitter and social media, and then, of course, the guy sending tweets out. And, I had kind of mixed feelings with it. There was a part of me that wished I could just go back in time where we didn't have any of this stuff, and the news unfolded a little bit slower than it does right now. I mean, when I got the tweet of the guy sending out the video that he took murdering these people, I just couldn't believe it. It's like, what is this? Where are we going here with this? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I did not get that tweet, so I'm not really familiar. I didn't get that tweet. I didn't see that video, so I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. But we definitely live in a 24/7 news cycle, and there's no turning back. I mean, it's just something that we're going to have to get sadly used to, or unplug, one or the other.
Now, Senator, and I'm going to get to the General Assembly in a minute, but yesterday, President Obama made a statement, and he made it shortly after this, and in the second half of the statement, he attempted to politicize this tragedy by saying that, gun violence is out of control and there's more people being killed in the U.S. by gun violence than at the hands of terrorists. I mean, isn't there a sense of timing here, Senator? Just like we were saying, I mean, the parents were just notified. I mean, for heaven's sake, Senator, the bodies are still warm, and the president is politicizing this. Don't you think that was a little over the top?
No, I don't. Certainly, it's not what I would have done. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself as a policymaker, when are we going to get around to doing some sensible things about gun violence? When are we going to get to the point where we can actually talk about and pass a bill that has universal background checks, so that those who aren't able to get guns, those who shouldn't be able to get guns, whether they have some sort of criminal record or some sort of mental incapacity, actually are being checked and not getting guns. That's a conversation that we need to have, and I'm not here to second guess the president's timing on that.
Now, Senator McEachin, you have been a longtime advocate of crafting legislation to eliminate gun violence in the United States. Let's call it gun control, if you will. But none of the legislation that's out there right now would have prevented this crazy man, Flanagan, from buying this Glock. I mean, he had no criminal record, no felonies, no restraining orders, no history of mental illness, and he was buying a handgun. He was not buying an automatic AK-47 or some, extended magazine weapon. So really, I mean, there's no law that's even pending out there that would have stopped this, right?
If everything that you said is accurate, and I'm not doubting your veracity, but you're getting your information from someplace else. But if what you're saying is accurate, then yes, there is no law out there pending that would stop someone from getting a gun in that situation. But that's not the situation that we've seen time and time again. We've seen people with domestic violence records. We've seen people with mental health issues. We've seen people with criminal backgrounds commit these heinous crimes.
Right.
And some of those certainly could have been prevented by a universal background check system.
Senator, are you guys in session or not?
We're not in session. Given both our Constitution as well as our prior precedent, we were in a special session. One house of the General Assembly, in this case the Senate, adjourned sine die. The special session is over.
So we had Majority Leader Kirk Cox on our show earlier in the week. We also had your colleague, and I know your friend, Senator Bill Stanley from Anita, Virginia, and both of them said you guys have no right to adjourn. You got to have two houses adjourned, so you're in session. They also went out to say, look, if Terry McAuliffe reappoints Judge Roush to a second interim term on September 17th, it's an unconstitutional appointment because we're not adjourned, we're in session, and so whatever she rules on between then and whenever time this is decided in January, somebody could challenge every single one of those rulings. Aren't you guys playing with fire here?
No, we're not. I mean, I respect Bill Stanley, I respect Kirk Cox, but their reading of the Constitution is simply wrong. They look at a section of the Constitution that's talking about how to adjourn a regular session. And there are lots of reasons why that portion of the Constitution is written that way. When you look at the section of the Constitution that talks about special sessions, it doesn't have the same requirements. And again, as I said, in prior General Assembly sessions, I think the most recent one was in the early 2000s. The Senate was passing the Mark Warner Transportation Plan, and Tommy Norman was literally communicating that or walking down the hall to communicate that to the House, standing in the doorway of the House, and as I understand it, Morgan Griffith moved to adjourn the House sine die. The Speaker at that time was Speaker Wilkins. Mm-hmm. He didn't recognize Tommy. He did recognize Morgan, and the House adjourned sine die literally there with Tommy standing in the doorway. So, and the session was ended. So both prior precedent as well as a fair reading of our Constitution suggests that we're not in session.
All right, so Senator, it sounds like you guys have done your research and you've got prior rulings here on your side. So let's get to the thing that started this special session, which is redistricting of the 3rd District, Bobby Scott's district. What happens with this now? The legislators, the legislature, was supposed to figure this out. There are no maps. Nothing's been presented. You've adjourned. So what happens now?
Well, let's make sure your listeners understand the full picture. That our side of the aisle came to the table with at least 2 maps that we filed them. We were ready to have a conversation about them and debate them. The Republican senators came with no maps, and the House Republicans came with the notion that, hey, we're just going to have hearings for 2 weeks, and then we'll file something on August 31st. Now, or pass something on August 31st. Now, what is significant about passing something on August 31st? The deadline is September 1st. So if you pass it on August 31st, and you're not coming back to August 31st. Remember that too. So you're going to pass it in one day, send it to the Senate. We have to digest it, and then we have to either agree or disagree, go through the whole legislative process again, all in one day, and then get it to the governor. That doesn't give anybody any real time to think about what we're doing, debate what we're doing, see if what we're doing is the correct thing to do. Nor does it allow the governor to have ample time to review the plan. So my suggestion to you is that the notion of coming back on August 31st and trying to pass the plan was a farce from the beginning. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Number two is, and I appreciate her candor, I said so on the floor, But I think Senator Jill Holstein Vogel hit it exactly right. She's the Republican chair of Privileges and Elections, that committee that would have dealt with the plans. She said, look, we have a fundamentally different view from you Democrats. We believe that all we have to do is fix the third. You all are redrawing the state. I don't believe that there's any plan that we can pass that the governor will sign, given what he said about what his expectations are. I got up on the floor. I said, I understand what you're saying. I disagree with what you're saying. The reality is that you can't just unpack the third, from our view at least, that you can't unpack the third and not redraw the whole state, because every time you touch one part of the third, it has implications elsewhere. That was number one. And number two, look, I respect the fact that you say that you can't pass a plan that the governor will sign. Then what are we doing here? Why are we wasting tax dollars? Let's just go home. And I move that the Senate adjourn, Sonny die. And a majority of the Senate agreed.
Well, you were able to get Senator Watkins on your side, who's retiring. So he was one Republican defector. From the political standpoint, and I've said this many times, you guys totally outmaneuvered the Republicans. You outmaneuvered her on Judge Roush. They didn't have any idea that they had a defector. You guys knew it ahead of time. Look, your soon-to-be colleague, Scott Zervell, Delegate Zervell, your soon-to-be Senate colleague, because he's going to easily win that race, called in that day at 6:15 on his way to Richmond and said Roush is going to stay in because they don't have 21. And he knew that at 6:15. Tommy obviously didn't know that at 10 a.m., so I don't know what the deal was there. They also didn't expect the adjournment. So you guys, that was done quite well just in following this politically. Now, look, everything is going to change in January, right? Because either you're going to be in charge of the Senate, Sazzo's going to be the majority leader, or not. And but you got to pick seats up. So,
right.
And I know we were on a conference call a few weeks back. You got to pick up one seat max, and you got to hold serve. I think you guys are in big trouble in District 21. So let's start with that, Senator McEachin. I just don't see how you're going to how John Edwards is going to be able to hang on in that race.
Oh, that's an easy answer for you, John. A couple of things you need to understand. 4 years ago, when he ran against David Nutter for his reelection, he won by 12 points. And when you look at the polling data, you see an independent in this race who isn't even polling in 2 or 3%. You'd have to have an independent who would poll like 6 or 7% to really dig into John's lead. And this independent is just clearly not doing that. In addition, you have to remember that district is reflexively Democratic, and the Republican challenger just isn't getting any traction. I mean, we've seen the polling data. We're going to obviously keep an eye on the race, but we've seen the polling data, and it's just not in the cards for the Republicans in that district.
Okay, let's go to Chuck Colgan's district retiring. Republicans think they've got a shot to pick that up. They got a pretty good candidate there, as you know, Sturtevant. What do you see there?
Well, yeah, I think you mean Parrish.
Yes, I'm sorry, Hal Parrish, right, mayor of Manassas. Right, mayor of Manassas.
He's a very popular mayor of Manassas, but again, you have a district that's reflexively Democratic. All the statewide Democrats have carried that district, in as well as the president. It is a majority-minority district. As you know, John, it is that minority piece of it's a plurality. It's a little bit more Hispanic than it is African-American, but the two together make it a majority-minority district. It's going to be a very expensive race. I predict that over $1 million will be spent at least on our side in that race. But at the end of the day, when you look at the polling data and the demographics of that district, it is a district that will go Democratic, and we've got a great candidate in Jeremy McPike there, who's working hard every day, knocking on doors, and as are all of our candidates, because we've got a dynamic field program in place, and it's showing results already.
Okay, let's go to, I've only got a minute, let's go to the retiring seat of Senator John Watkins, moderate Republican, 10th district. That's part of Chesterfield, Richmond City, Dan Gecker, Glenn Sturdivant. What do you see there?
Again, it is a district that was redrawn in 2011. All the statewide Democrats have carried it since 2011. When John Watkins ran for his reelection, he ran against a Democrat with virtually no money and no real experience or exposure to the public. That Democrat carried the city of Richmond and got 44% of the vote, approximately. It's going Democratic. We've got a great candidate in Dan Gecker, who is a member of the Board of Supervisors in Chesterfield. Chesterfield is the biggest portion of that district, about 40% of that district. And, again, the numbers look great, and Gecker looks like he's going to be Senator Gecker real soon.
Okay, so, Senator, I've only got 15 seconds. Right now, make a prediction. How many? 21?
We're running the table. We're going to get to 22.
22. So what would the 22nd one be?
We're going to pick up Gary McCullum down in your neck of the woods, running against Frank Wagner, and Joe McCabe running against Dick Black up in the Loudon area.
All right. I think the Black race is going to be close. You're going to get blown out by Wagner. We're out of time. I want to thank Senator Don McEachin for being with us.